Hey, we're going to do championship predictions for this weekend's games. I think last one was quite a decent run out last week's. I'm sure I got at least 3 bob money, which is rare, granted. But first up on Friday night, we've got West Brom and Leicester. I'll be doing a watch along for it. It's live! What I would say is that despite these being 4th and 7th, Leicester are 4th, West Brom are 7th for a minute, I don't think I've been overly impressed with either of them quality-wise in terms of, you know, the personnel that they've actually got and then translating that into how they're actually playing. I don't think they've been as good as they can be, which does just show that they are two at top sides in this league when they're 4th and 7th, and I don't think they've played that cracking so far. The West Brom and Madger thing, I do think that almost needs addressing, because you can't have someone who scored that many goals for you last season just rotting on bench. He's got a year left on his contract. That needs sorting out now, because there's no reason that they can't play Hegebo and Madger in a front two. You make it work. It's Mason's first job. I don't think he's so set in his ways already when he's been a manager for 10 seconds. Surely he can adapt his play style. But Leicester, I do think, have had a fairly tough start. It's got to be said. Like, they went to Charlton and won, which is impressive. They obviously played Birmingham at home a couple of weeks ago now. They've played a lot of the Midland sides already, but they played Birmingham and bet them as well. Or went to Oxford with 10 men for the majority of the game and got a point, and then drew with Coventry as well overnight. West Brom are going to pose a sort of different threat to other sides, I think, that Leicester have played so far. Because I don't think they've sort of got the bite up front, and they've got Madger on bench. Again, it's just daft. Whereas Leicester, you know this Monga fella, this young lad that they've got, Mavididi and Fatuwu, I think regardless of how they end up playing this game. Say if West Brom completely dominate them and they've got 80% possession, let's just go completely wild. And so they've got all at ball all the time. Leicester are just sat defending, soaking up pressure and springing on counters. How fast them players are will make that work. If Leicester are dominating this game, these lads can get ball to feet and take a man on. I just think the attacking threat that Leicester have got, Jordan Eyup, I think it makes everybody else around him sort of look good, doesn't he? I think that's his strength. But I think Leicester going forward look like they're posing a lot more threat than what West Brom are. And I do think Leicester probably have got the bite in this game. I do think it'll be a low scorer. Leicester have scored 8. They've only conceded 5. West Brom have scored 7 and conceded 6. So it's not a nice scoring game. But I do make Leicester marginal favourites. And then it will be 3 losses on bounce for West Brom, which would probably start raising eyebrows despite a fairly fast start, like winning away at Wrexham and stuff like that. But I'll go Leicester 1-0 to get that underway. I hope it's an exciting game, but to be honest, I don't see it. Round to Coventry and Birmingham for half 12. These Midland sides, there's so many of them. Birmingham, obviously, late great winner from Lyndon Dykes against Swansea at home, 94th minute, I believe. And I banged on about this in EFL review. It is good to have them different profiles that Birmingham have actually got. I think squad depth-wise, they probably are one of, if not strongest in Division Birmingham, and they've just come up. Whereas Coventry, they've drawn 3 in a row. In all comps, they've not won in 4 games. I think these are arguably the best side in Division. Genuinely, I think they're a top threat for autos. I think the attacking threat that they've got from so many different areas is outstanding. They do look like they've strengthened defensively from previous seasons, because that's been a problem for a couple of years. Even when they've been in and around playoffs, defensively there's always been a sort of issue there compared to sides that got up in front of them. But I do think that's sort of changing now. They brought Wolfenden in, who can't even start over Kitchen and Thomas. I think Lampard's just got him going. They've kept Rodoni, obviously Hadji Wright's still there, obviously Mason Clark. They've got some really impressive players. Starting 11-wise, I do think Coventry edged this. But like I said, the squad depth with Birmingham, I can't really ignore that. And 3 draws on bounce for Coventry against Oxford, Norwich and Leicester. It's not bad, but the amount of shots that they're having in these games, apart from the Leicester one, like the Oxford and Norwich games, they've had so many shots, you expect more goals from them. I don't think Birmingham win this. Despite me having them like right at top of this division, I think they'll challenge for autos still. But Coventry, I think, will be autos, is the difference here. And the home aspect, I think they've got a really good record under Lampard at home. They've maybe lost twice in league, and that's it. I'm going 2-1 Cov. I do really fancy their chances at getting up this year. I think they're a really good team. So I'll go 2-1 Coventry against Brom. Swansea and Millwall. Right, Millwall, they won on Monday night. Absolutely crap game. 0 quality from either side at all between Millwall and Watford. It looked like a mid-table League One clash. And before you say it, yes, I do know what a mid-table League One clash looks like, being a Barnsley fan. Because we're entering our 4th season in this shithole. But there were no quality or anything of note. Best player by an absolute landslide were Kramer, centre-half for Millwall. He looks a serious player. I'm surprised Brentford let somebody like that go. But Swansea are no mugs. They obviously lost 1-0 away at Birmingham very late on. I do think Millwall, and they're not helped by injuries that they've got at the minute, but if they play like they did against Watford away at Swansea, Swansea will turn them over. And I do think it would be very Millwall to just go win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. Consistency has been their Achilles heel for years, and that's the reason that they've not gone into playoffs once since they've come up. I do think this is, across the grand scheme of things in this league, which is a very level playing field, by the way, top to bottom. I think apart from Wednesday, it's an hard league to call. But these are two eighth decent sides. Taking my Millwall bias out of this, I look at it and think, have either of these two got it in them really to challenge that top six? And I don't know from the bits that I've seen so far. And for that reason and that reason alone, I do think I'm going to go with a draw here. I don't know if Millwall have got enough bite up front. Ivanovic is injured at the minute, innit? He might be playing in this. He may be bad, but I don't actually know. Swansea will give him more of a game. And it's obviously going to be a low scorer being Millwall. I'll go 1-1. Swansea and Millwall. Wrexham and Derby. Parky's job is saved for another week with a really impressive win. It's got to be said, away at Norwich. Speaking of Derby, currently third bottom in division. But at the same time, we're only 6 games in. A win takes them up into a playoff fight. So there's nothing of note points-wise at minute, apart from Middlesbrough at top and Sheff United at bottom. However, only 1 win in 6 and a loss at home to Preston. Alarm bells slightly ringing. I saw Derby fans saying that apparently used to switch to a 5-back home to Preston and it just didn't work. I feel like you've got to be at your absolute best, really, to go to Wrexham and win. And this is with Parky, who I think will inevitably get sacked. I'm not going to change my mind on that. I do think that he will get sacked if they're not in and around top 10, say, in December. Before January comes round and before they chuck another 20 million quid at it, I think they will have a new man in place to spend that money. If Wrexham are not in and around any sort of push around Christmas. And I know people can say, well, Parky's picking all these players, he's had so much time. Yes, that is true, but they are so cutthroat for a reason. And no team in the history of this pyramid has come up from League One, spent £30 million and had the expectation of just surviving. If you spend 30 million quid when you come up, regardless of the Wrexham factor and how much money they've got, you're spending that much brass, you're trying to go straight up. That is not a normal amount of money by any means for a side coming up from League One. But Derby at home, do I think they will get a win here? To be honest, yeah. I really do. I think you have just got to strip it back sometimes and think, who has got the better footballers? And it is comfortably Wrexham. And if that is what it comes down to in this sort of game, going forward, I do, like I've said a few times, I know they didn't score against Preston, but I would always back Derby for a goal with Morris and some of the other attacking threats that they've actually got. I think they look all right going forward. But the injuries that they've got to that back line and the age of the lads that they're actually starting, they just look slow. And I think if you're playing to the strengths of Kiefer Moore and Windass, you're going to get some goals. If they can keep the strongest 11 fit, Wrexham, I know they've got outstanding depth, but if they can keep the strongest 11 fit, top standard. Yeah, this would be worrying for Derby, to be fair, if they do lose here as well. They would obviously still be in bottom 3. It would only be 7 games after this. But I am going to back Wrexham for a fairly narrow win. I do think Derby will score, like I said. And Wrexham have been quite poor at home so far. But I think they'll win this one. I'll go 2-1 to the Red Dragons. Charlton and Blackburn. Charlton obviously coming off back of the first away win at season. We're win away at Sheff United, who are pointless. So they are only playing whipping boys, in fairness, but it's a really impressive win nonetheless. Blackburn would have probably been coming off back of 3 wins in 4 if that Ipswich game had carried out. They were 1-0 up. Ipswich had 10 men. It was 78th minute. I guess it's Blackburn's fault for having a pitch from 70s, but at the same time, I think it's ridiculous that that'll probably end up being replayed. Despite the Charlton win, and obviously we're looking at Charlton at home and how good they are defensively, and you think if they're going to stay up Charlton, they're going to have to pick a lot of the wins up at home. I think that's fair to say. But I don't think it's as easy to just go, oh yeah, they'll beat Blackburn then. Because Blackburn, everybody sort of looks at as being crap this year. They've made so many sales. A lot of the better, more experienced players have gone. But if they had the 3 points from weekend, they'd be sat up in 11th. So we'd be looking at it in a completely different light, I think, if that game against Ipswich would have actually finished. Ismail, I don't think really gets the credit for what he can do. Because if Charlton want to play like Charlton and Nathan Jones, Ismail will play like Barnsley's Ismail. And he will just they will go to Valley and play hoofball to the absolute max. And I do think they could nick something here because of it. To be fair, we do, well, obviously me, but yeah, I don't know what you lot think. But I think I stereotype Charlton as being really strong defensively, but they don't offer a great deal going forward. Because that was the case for a lot of last season as well. They obviously made a lot of good signings since. But they're quite a decent attacking threat against Sheff United. And I do think they will start scoring a few more goals. They've only scored 4 in 6. They are the lowest scorers in division apart from Sheffield. But I do think going forward, Charlton will score a few more goals. But I don't think they'll have enough to win this. I'll go Charlton 1, Blackburn 1. It's for a draw. Score draw. Ipswich and Portsmouth. Now, how does the red card work here? Is Greaves not able to play because he got the red card against Blackburn? But then he got called off, so games don't count. We will find out Saturday, 3 o'clock. You'd think it'd count, but Ipswich's strength in depth in a lot of positions is ridiculous. And I do think against Sheff United, they started to show what they can actually do. Obviously, against Blackburn, they were playing with 10 men for quite a bit from second half onwards. But even in first half, it was quite an even game against Blackburn. Portsmouth, I think, they did lose against Wednesday, but they look like a different side away from home this year compared to last. They were hopeless, weren't they, for majority last year away. They've been really good in some of the games so far, and obviously a draw away at Southampton in the big derby, I think they'd take that, definitely, in the first one. But can Ipswich beat them? I mean, you'd think so on surface of it, wouldn't you? But like I said, the Portsmouth away results so far, they went to Oxford first game and won, and then they've got a point away at West Brom and Southampton. That's two of your top sides. Once we're looking at this in May, I know you can say, well, Southampton are 19th. But as of May next year, they will be a lot higher. We'll look back at that game and think, bloody hell, that's a rate point. Same as the West Brom one. So is it a case of Portsmouth, when there's sort of no expectation on them, they'll go and get decent results? Because I don't think anybody would have sort of looked at them and think, yeah, you'll go and get some at West Brom and Southampton. But then when they're playing Sheff Wednesday at home, for example, they go and lose. So is it a pressure shift? Are they trying to adjust to not being a plucky side that's just got promoted? Can we sort of defend well, play on counters and just stay up? Can they now take that step forward with some good additions that they've made? I don't know, maybe that's sort of playing into it a little bit. So part of me is thinking that they can go to a league favourite in Ipswich and get something, just based on that, because they've done it at a couple other teams so far. But I do think Ipswich are just that good. I don't think they can be as poor as they have been forever. I do think it will click for them, Ipswich, and they will start winning some games soon, more consistently. Obviously, they wouldn't have got one against Blackburn if it had been seen out, but I think they get one here. I will go a narrow 2-1 Ipswich win. Oh my God. I'll tell you what, it's a relegation 6 points already. Oxford versus Sheffield United. This is 20th versus 24th in the league. Now, Oxford are a side that a lot of people looked at before the season started and thought, defo going down. Small team, relegated. But the one thing that we all forget, and even I was sort of being drawn into it last couple of weeks, I'm thinking, God, they couldn't beat Leicester at home with 10 men for that long. And I'm sort of thinking, oh, maybe they could be dragged into it. Gary Rowett. Forget everything else. Gary Rowett. These will survive. Not lost in 3 games, and that's against Coventry, Leicester, 2 top sides, and Bristol City, who they went to and won. Convincingly, by the way. They went and won 3-1. They had a lot of shots. And Bristol City, if they'd have won that game, they'd have gone up into second. They were in playoffs last season. They're a good team. So in the last 3 games against very good sides, Oxford have come out of it with 5 points. The Belgian fella at midfield for Oxford is very good. And I'll tell you what, just straight off the bat, I think that is an area where Sheffield United will struggle in this game. Brannigan and that Belgian fella against a very small, and I would say quite weak midfield that Sheffield United have got, where Peck, Matos looks quite good, but height-wise, it's just not there. Callum O'Hare, even him, if you want to put him in middle, they're going to look at Oxford's team and think they're playing Land of the Giants. And Oxford aren't even a big side, physically, or like height-wise. But I just think they will bully Sheffield. That is what I would say. I think a lot of sides have done that to Sheffield United so far this season. Just little broed them a lot of time. And even when Sheffield United controlling a lot of possession in a couple of the games so far, not many. Against Charlton, they had a bit more at ball, I think, off memory. But what's the point in doing that and having a lot at ball when you're doing no way? They're not creating any chances. They do quite well, I think, transitioning from goalie to wingers and attackers. But then once they're on ball, they look completely hopeless. And to be honest, saw the same thing here. I think Oxford's primary objective is to not concede with Gary Rowett. And obviously being one of the weaker sides with a smaller budget, I do think that is the thinking for him across a full season. Don't concede. If we can win, go and try and do it when the opportunity arises. But first and foremost, try not to concede. Try not to get hammered. Just stay in game. And can Sheffield United break something like that down? I truly don't know at the minute. I am worrying for him a bit. But I look at this and think, with the amount of shots that Oxford actually had, the amount of chances that they created away at Bristol City, who have been defensively very solid so far, I made Oxford favourites for this. They're on a decent bit of form, and I do think Sheffield United need to get to that international break quite quickly. I'm going to give Oxford a 2-1 win. I do think Sheffield United will score here for first time since opening weekend. But I genuinely made Oxford favourites. I will go 2-1 to the Yellows. Yellows! Preston and Bristol City, the battle for mid-table. 2 ex-Barnsley managers in Hecky for Preston and Struber for Bristol City. I'm quite a fan of Struber, it's got to be said. But I also have a lot of respect for Hecky, and I don't think he gets the appreciation and credit that he actually deserves for how good a job he's doing. Preston are in 5th. Bristol City are in 3rd. Maybe these guys have evolved past just being a mid-table clash. Preston obviously went to Derby and saw out a 1-0 win. That is quite impressive, it's got to be said. They've only lost so far in the league, come away at Portsmouth, who are typically quite good at home anyway. Bristol City were the first loss this season so far at home to Oxford, but Oxford looked quite good value for it as well. You can't just say it was a sticky little win. They actually played well. But I'm just going to come straight into this. 2-2. Desmond. History will sort of just repeat itself, and I will just go for the typical 11th and 12th place trophy award. I will go a 2-2 between Preston and Bristol City. And to be honest, I think in the position that they both are at the minute, they would both take that. Wednesday in QPR. QPR are off back of 3 wins in a row after they got tonked by Coventry. They conceded 7, didn't they? Since then, they've won all 3 games and they've scored a fair few goals as well. Wednesday, coming off the back of the first and probably only win of the entire season away at Portsmouth. I do think when there is zero expectation on them at all, that is when you'll probably see the best out of Wednesday. Obviously, the Leeds game that they won in Cup, and Leeds put quite a strong team out. That's an impressive win. They were quite good against Leicester first game. And then they went to Portsmouth, who, stereotyping again, were outstanding last season at home. And you would typically think that they should hammer Wednesday. They played well in all 3 of them games. But the home ones, where you're sort of looking at them and thinking, can they get something here? Stoke, Swansea, Grimsby, loss. Every home game in all comps they've lost so far. So I do think despite them coming off back a really good win, it's got to be said, away at Portsmouth, I do think they might, and I think this is honestly a bad thing in their case, I think they might have a little bit of confidence thinking, oh, we could actually sort of play football here. We might have a chance at home to QPR. And then QPR, with the overwhelming quality that they have got, I genuinely think could come and steamroll them here. They're outstanding going forward. I don't need to speak about Coney anymore. I think jury's out on that one. He's outstanding. I'm going to go 4-0 QPR, which might be ridiculous after the win that Wednesday have just had. But I think QPR will really come and just, like, sit down a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you've got to win, but know your place. I do think it'll be one of them. QPR went back a really good form. They bet Charlton, Wrexham and Stoke in the last 3 games. Wednesday are cannon fodder to a lot of these teams, and I think QPR will steamroll them. So I will go 4-0 to the R's. Southampton and Middlesbrough. I can't keep doing this. To be fair, I actually gave Middlesbrough a win. That was my first win that I predicted them. I said 2-1 against West Brom, and it were that. But I weren't overly impressed with them throughout the entire game. The second goal was absolute quality. But in terms of a game between 2 top sides, I didn't think there were loads of quality between it. But that being said, Southampton are 19th in division. They've not got going yet. I do think it is difficult for a side that were getting hammered every game, every week last season in Premier League, coming down as one of the worst ever, to then change immediately and start dominating games. It is going to take time with a new manager and odd new player that Southampton have got. But I think Middlesbrough, the wave that they're riding at the minute, why should we look at this and think that Southampton, just because of like the name sort of and the coming down parachute payments and pre-season expectations, should not decide your prediction on this game? Middlesbrough are by and large the better team in this game right now. I think at Middlesbrough Park, Middlesbrough look outstanding, and in a lot of the positions now, I look at them and think quite effective. You know what I mean? Decent player for this league. I don't look at many and think, whoa, top draw. Apart from that City lad, Acne. Do you know what I mean? Them type of, maybe Britain to a certain extent for a right back in this league. But I'm at Middlesbrough favourites in this game, which they do not want to hear. To be fair, I did predict the last one, which actually won. But if I said that you're going to win, you're probably going to lose. Southampton, I do think it is a waiting game and that it will come good at some point further on in this season if Will still is given the time. I do think you are sort of looking over your shoulder if you lose this game. But I honestly think Middlesbrough will come here and get something. Part of me thinks a win. Like, seriously, part of me is thinking, could they nick a 1-0 here? But they can't win every game forever, can they? They're on 5 wins and a draw in 6 games. I think I came into this thinking a Middlesbrough win, but I'm going to go draw. I will go Southampton 1, Middlesbrough 1. Sorry, boys. Stoke and Norwich. This honks. This absolutely honks. Stoke are second in league, but last few weeks I've not been overly impressed with them, really. They obviously lost 1-0 to QPR, who, again, quite a good side, and it was Thunder Bastard that actually put it in for him. But from the highlights and what it showed, QPR could have had a fair few, you know. But again, it's the Coney effect, baby. But then at the same time, Norwich conceded 3 goals to Wrexham. But I do think personnel-wise, as crazy as this is, for league positions and club size and name and everything, Wrexham have got miles better players than what Stoke have. They actually just have. And Norwich made quite a lot of chances as well, it has got to be said. Their away form this season, Norwich, has been outstanding. They won away at Watford in Cup. They won away at Portsmouth. Won away at Blackburn. And got a point away at Cov. So they've been really, really good away from home. Stoke, quite a mixed bag at home this season. 3 wins all comps and 2 losses. Oh, it just don't make any sense. But I'll make Norwich favourites for this. It makes no sense at all. 2-1 Norwich. Watford and all. Was I right all along? Watford are 4th bottom so far. Obviously, I am joking, guys. They are 1 win off of the top half. Let's chill out. But in that Millwall game on Monday night, there was 0 quality on show from that Watford team. Zilch. niche. The better players like Loser in middle, I think, had an onking game, to be fair. The one that I did like, chuffing Bacardi and Coke up front, Barracuda, whatever his name is, that striker, the young lad that they've got from Bayern Munich, Irancuda, he looked quite sharp in certain spells. I do think he did look quite wasteful as well at some parts, but he looked like the only one that every time he got ball, I was thinking, all right, maybe something could happen here, because the struggle to break down, just stereotypical, defensively solid Millwall. They've not offered loads and loads going forward at minute, Watford, whereas Hull are just playing to their better players' strengths, McBurney ball, and they're scoring goals. They've scored 2 or more, Hull, in 5 of the last 6 games. That's how many they're scoring. It's only first one, which were 0 away at Coventry, which were a good result, by the way. They got hammered at home to Blackburn, but every other game they've scored 2 or more goals in. And I think that'll be the same thing here. I make Hull favourites for this game. I just think they look like they really look like they've got something about them. I'm sort of leaning towards Ulmi anyway. I'm starting to like them a little bit. As a side that everybody looked at start and thought, these are in bother. I think the business that they made, despite having a transfer embargo, were outstanding. Some of the players that they have brought in. And like I said, I do think Watford in certain areas look quite good. But the overwhelming quality in these two sides, I think Hull are looking better at the minute. They're scoring goals. Watford just aren't. They've only got 5 goals in 6 games. I think Hull run out 2-1 winners here, away. Another away win. It's an hard set of fixtures anyway this week, but I'm getting it to Tigers. And that's that. Kiss. Make sure you like, subscribe if you do enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. Love you all, and I will see you in a bit.
I say I'm a man, yes, I'm a mucker. I think of me saying as a right good looker. I say up that. Show us bit it.